Hey folks, Jake Baldino here. If I look tired, it's because I've been messing with the PS5 Pro since it arrived. So today, some first impressions on Sony's big expensive console. No review unit for this one. I just went out and bought it myself. Don't make fun of me. So first impressions here. I do think over time, once we've spent more time with it as a team overall, I will be talking about it more. But for now, I've jumped in, I've been messing with it, and yes, pretty much it's exactly as you'd expect. If you've read some of the reviews or if you just saw the news about the console and made up your mind already, this probably won't change that. Just off the jump, for me, it doesn't feel as exciting or necessary as the PlayStation 4 Pro was. That felt like a substantial upgrade, a needed upgrade. Here with the PS5 Pro, I just don't have the same feeling. I don't have that excitement. I like tech, I'm an enthusiast, and this one is more complicated and it's a tougher sell. We'll get into all that. And yes, if you could tell on screen here, we are continuing our trend of handheld consoles and actual consoles and hardware reviews. We're taking them in uncomfortable places. Sorry, but we got to stand out from like The Verge and Marquez Brownlee, okay? So we're doing what we can. But if you don't know the gist, the biggest thing, of course, the elephant in the room with the PS5 Pro is the price tag. It is $700 in the US. Along with that, the thing that pissed me off the most is that it's another $80 for a disk drive add-on. As someone who has a bunch of physical games, I essentially had to buy this as well. Along with that, if you like to have this stand up nice and tall, you need to pay an additional $30 for the vertical stand, which is something PlayStation's been doing forever, but I don't know, it still just burns. So that is potentially over $800 all in, and that's not even counting state and local taxes, whatever you have. And of course, if you live in different countries, it's potentially even more expensive. So with that, of course, there's that immediate question of like value. Like, is this really worth it? And again, it depends. Ultimately, yes, PlayStation 5 Pro does make a difference. And yes, technically, this is the best way to play your PlayStation 5 games. But your mileage is going to vary. And at this point, I feel like we're only seeing the beginning because developers have to support this console. They have to patch a lot of PS5 games and such for this thing to really take advantage of the PS5 Pro. So it's going to be a while before I think we really see this thing truly benefit. But for now, let's talk about the thing itself, the hardware, the design, okay? So as you see on screen here, it is very much continuing the design ethos of the PS5 Slim or revised PS5 from earlier this year. And when we reviewed that unit, I was on record saying I like the design change up. I like that overall it's a little more streamlined, it's a little more slim, like all of that definitely carries over to the PS5 Pro. I really just like the way it looks, but the most important thing are the comparisons. So when you look at this thing next to a base PS5 or a launch PS5, the sizes are actually quite similar. It's the same height, like they're equally as tall, but the PS5 Pro is a little bit more narrow. So if you are a crazy person that is upgrading your PS5 to a PS5 Pro, you're used to this thing already taking up a bunch of room. So that's gonna continue, but it hasn't gotten any bigger. And yes, if you're looking at my base PS5, like, and that ugly stand I bought off of Amazon, I'm sorry, yes, but my original stand broke. But along with that, I wanna point out that this is not compatible with like other like PlayStation covers or PS5 Slim covers that you bought. That is unfortunate. I was hoping with all this modularity to this new design that will carry over, but unfortunately it has not. Benefits though, tech stuff that I personally enjoy is this comes with 2 terabytes of storage, which is very nice right off the bat to have that, as well as Wi-Fi 7 support. As a networking nerd, I appreciate that as well. Although I have seen some reports of people having some networking issues, specifically on Reddit. It seems like some people are having some Wi-Fi networking issues. So everyone's setup, everyone's situation varies. I had no problems over the last couple of days, but you know, keep your eyes peeled. And the big question, of course, sound and heat. You know, so far, it hasn't generated any more heat than a regular PS5 and hasn't generated any more sound than my base PS5. Maybe a tiny bit more in terms of like the gentle sound of the air blowing through the vents, but it doesn't sound like a big, massive, loud fan or anything substantial like that. That can change. Some games can maybe push this further, but as of right now, it doesn't seem alarming. It doesn't seem like how loud the PS4 Pro was at a point. Overall, the console just kind of blends in. It just stands back with the crowd of other PS5 consoles, but that's not really important. You're here for the games, the graphics, and stuff like that. And again, a little complicated, not as exciting, but The big thing Sony was touting was the big three, right? The bigger GPU for graphical performance, the AI-driven upscaling, or PSSR, equivalent to something like you would have on PC with DLSS or FSR. There are differences, of course, but like for layman's, that's the best way to say it. And third, of course, advanced ray tracing. Right off the bat, ray tracing, I haven't really seen too much benefit here. Like, yes, you can enable it. It still kills the frame rate. The bigger GPU is, of course, going to allow for some things, but it's not going to make games look like completely different games. The thing here is the PSSR. I think potentially down the road, this has the most potential for this console to enable essentially games to have a more crisp image, a more upscaled image that can potentially make a big difference. Now, again, like here at gameranx, we don't have like equipment to test frame rates or anything like that or give you comparisons. I will always, and many of my colleagues will always recommend Digital Foundry for that if you want to count frames or pixels. But the better resolution stuff is significant for games like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which when you played that on base PS5 performance mode, to get that higher frame rate, that game had to look muddy or blurry as hell. It had to lower the resolution. So here, now, there's less compromises and the game looks noticeably better. That's one of the few examples, I think, that really benefit from this off the jump. And of course, that is also the developers on their end updating Final Fantasy VII Rebirth to take advantage of that. I haven't been able to test every single game that is getting a PS5 Pro patch, but Silent Hill 2 was marked as a PS5 Pro update thing. There are no additional graphic settings or anything like that with it, but I did notice it seemed to be a little bit smoother. That game did have some stuttery frame rates, even in its performance mode, specifically in the open areas. I still kind of noticed that, but once I loaded a save further into the game in interior, it did feel overall a little bit smoother. The big example was Spider-Man 2. I just love swinging around. I always have Spider-Man games installed on my consoles just for that. And yes, here I do notice a difference. The ray tracing you enable can be crazy advanced, but the biggest thing really is the Pro performance option that lets you take advantage of the game having a higher resolution and a high frame rate. So, like Mark Cerny said when this thing was first announced, it really does feel like less of a compromise. And that is very cool to see. Where it is most notable, though, and it's not going to be for everyone, is if you have a TV that supports a high refresh rate. I wasn't able to capture this with our equipment, but like, yes, setting it up on one of my TVs that does allow that capability. I've already been benefiting it with PS5 games, of course, but now with Spider-Man at like crazy high frame rates, like smooth as butter, it is noticeable. So I'll give him credit for that. The other big noticeable heavy hitter with Spider-Man 2 was also Horizon Forbidden West, another flagship Sony title, able to take advantage of everything here, having its own special new graphical options to really crank up the frame rate and resolution. And yes, the game can look really damn good. Interestingly enough, though, like you're still able to choose a mode that harnesses the power of the PlayStation 5 Pro and still have only 30 frames per second. That's weird. But when you get that uncompromised mode, again, the thing that Mark Cerny said that they were going for here with a good looking resolution and higher frame rates, yes, it's cool. It's somewhat noticeable. Along with that, the game does have like a newer version of Game Boost, something that the PlayStation 4 Pro, I believe, and PS5 did have, but now essentially it has a new box you can check to improve the visual performance on PS4 games. The results are going to vary here, and frankly, I didn't see too much. A lot of people online have been talking about Bloodborne, that being the biggest thing. No, the game is not now suddenly at a high frame rate thanks to the increased GPU power here or anything like that, but there is a very, very slight increase in visual sharpness. I'm talking like really small. We found it kind of hard to notice, but like a little bit more detail on the characters. It is not a reason to go out and buy the PS5 Pro by any means. And on another note, I did download also another PS4 game, Red Dead Redemption 2, and I didn't really notice a difference there at all. Now, if we are talking about PS4 games, technically this is a PS5 game, but The Last of Us Part 2, the remaster, whatever. This game was already pretty much a powerhouse on base PS5. It looked great, it ran great, but now you have the option to like really crank it up to 11. And I will say The results varied on this one a little bit. I have two TVs. I have a TV that is just a regular old, pretty good TV, and then I have another one that takes advantage of the high refresh rate stuff. The Last of Us Part 2 on the new Pro mode on my regular TV, it had a weird look to it. It almost looked like it was just added like a sharpening filter, and I didn't really like the way it looked. It took my eyes a while to get used to. But when I did use all the proper settings to take advantage of like a high refresh rate 120 hertz TV, I found it to look pretty good on my other TV. The detail, the blades of grass, the high frame rate, but also everything looking very sharp and crisp was pretty cool to see. So again, you'll notice something I keep bringing up is like, oh, high refresh rate TV and stuff like that. So yes, this thing is much better. This $700 console is much better if you also have a very expensive TV. So yes, of course, there's also that conversation of like, well, wouldn't a PC be better? That's a different conversation. I think everybody's situations are different, but I have seen a lot of reviews also saying like, hey, PS5 Pro is only good if you have a high refresh rate TV. And I don't totally agree with that because you're still getting the added benefit of frame rate stuff. Either way, long runaround way of saying, again, this is just first impressions, and we've only been able to see so much out of this thing. So yes, if money is no object, if you have no issues at all, buying this thing is technically, seemingly, the best way to play PS5 games. Is it a massive, exciting upgrade? No. The games that aren't patched or updated for PS5 Pro, does it substantially change them? Does it really change the game? No. But for the people who want the best of something, yes, this is the best. It will give you a slight edge. Over time, I am excited to see how significant some of these game overhauls really tend to be. I am excited to see where the divide happens, just like as somebody who is interested in this stuff, like where that divide is between a game optimized for PS5 and also PS5 Pro. Is switching on that PS5 Pro graphical option really going to shake things up? Or is it always going to really just be down to people like us, the people, really squinting at resolutions and trying to count frames per second, It is definitely for the enthusiast user, and also the enthusiast user that has a ton of expendable cash for something like this. Granted, every gamer is savvy, and I know plenty of people will like trade in their PS5 and get the PS5 Pro and eat the, split the difference, but I just don't find it as exciting to really do that right away. You know what I mean? This is, of course, me and Andrew behind the scenes really going by feel, just looking at what we got here after the first couple of days. So like I said, we'll keep you guys updated down the line. We'll probably do like a 1 month later or 6 months later or something like that. Or was it worth it? But for now, these are the first impressions. Frankly, again, it didn't surprise me. If you're like me, you're paying attention to gaming news, you're drilled into this stuff. It's pretty much what you expect. So those are the initial first impressions, but I want to hear from you guys in the comments. Maybe you're a PC player that is just happily where you are. God bless. Maybe you are someone who was excited for this and bought into this. I would love to know your first impressions. Maybe you're somebody who didn't have a PS5, was holding out, and now this is your first PS5. Maybe you're none of these people. Whoever you are, I do want to hear your perspectives, so let us know in the comments. If you like what we do here, though, and we're just talking about games every day, clicking a like button does help us. We appreciate that. But as usual, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next time.